Hey guys, welcome to the studio. Come on in, pull up your chair, get comfortable. And what I would like to talk about specifically in this video is about mixing and the art of mixing. Now, in recording, generally people will break it down into 3 stages for a final product. They'll talk about the tracking, then they'll talk about mixing, and then usually people will have their finished product mastered. Now, we can do all 3 of these in our home studios, but more so in a professional situation, people will tend to have specific people that will do each of those duties for them. In other words, they'll go and they have a special tracking engineer, or they may go to another studio and do some tracking or track the drums at another studio, bring it here to our own home studios, and then a professional might hire just somebody that is great with mixing, a professional mix engineer. And then obviously you would send out that final product to have it mastered. Now, I want to stress that I believe that mixing is extremely important. A lot of people will spend all the time in the world to get the right sounds. They'll spend a lot of money on their instruments, on their equipment and everything, and will go over and over the tracks just to get everything performed the way that they would like. And then when it comes to mix time, they just blow right through it. They push the faders up, or however you do it in the box there in your DAW, and they just figure that, well, the mixing that shouldn't take nearly as long. But I believe that you should spend almost on about an equal amount of time mixing that you do when you would spend for tracking. In other words, if you spend a day on one song and you spend a day getting the drums, your bass guitar, keyboards, your vocals, whatever instruments that you have in your song, and if you spend a good, say, 8 hours to get a flawless performance and an inspired performance that you're happy with, then plan on spending that amount of time for mixing. Mixing is that important. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just sit down and mix for 8 hours in one song. That might be pretty much of a burnout setup, but if you could just take that song, you might mix it for an hour or 2, and then you might sleep on it and come back and revisit that mix the next day with fresh ears. You might want to take that mix and play it on another system, in your car, for instance, or in your MP3 player, your little portable player, or your iPod, or your iPhone, or whatever, or on another friend's system. So you may find that it sounds great here at home, but maybe it's not translating exactly the way you would like it somewhere else. Things aren't coming through. You're not hearing the bass like you would, or you've lost the kick drum, or et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, you come back and revisit the mix. So you might spend another hour or 2 making little tweaks and coming up with another mix. Now, I suggest don't throw away those old mixes, but go ahead and keep the successive mixes, and you might organize them by dating the mixes, however you like to organize your files. And then after you've done this 2 or 3 times, you can see that maybe easily you've gotten up to your 6 to 8 hours of mixing, because you've gone ahead and spent the time to get it right in the mix stage, and you've got it balanced, and finally, after a couple of attempts, hopefully you've gotten what you're really happy with. Also, I like to go ahead and just, when I'm mixing, I'm looking at it as an engineer, but then when I come back and revisit these mixes, I like to come back and visit them as a listener. I think that's very important. Don't come back and listen to it as a musician and critique your performance, or critique, are things balanced, everything the way that they should be? Because when you were mixing, you were concerned with that, and when you were tracking, you were concerned with your performance. So go ahead and take that hat off and come back now and just listen to those mixes as a listener. I think that's very important. Now, in the upcoming videos, I'm going to talk more about some tips and tricks that I think will help us perfect our mixes and get better mixes quicker and faster. But for now, I just want to stress that this is just one stage of the process that I think a lot of people may not really realize, that it's just as important as the tracking. Give that mix time an equal share, an equal amount of time as you did with your tracking, and I think you'll really be pleased with your final product. That's it. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos, more tips and tricks about mixing. Talk to you later, guys.